Hey guys, in this video we want to tell you how you can get a professional photography kit for under $1,000.
And there's actually many ways to do that, but we thought it'd be fun and interesting to take 3 different approaches to getting a professional kit for so cheap.
And to get a professional photography kit for under $1,000, you're going to be looking at used gear, and for that reason we are extremely grateful for our friends at KEH.com who have yet again allowed us to borrow some gear necessary to make this video possible.
KEH is who we use to buy all our used gear, and we do buy a lot of it, so we have some experience with them. They have a great inventory, they score the quality of their gear very well, and their prices are fair. And they do have a 180-day warranty, which is reassuring. We really can't recommend them enough as a great way to jumpstart your photography career, and if you want to do that, use the code DENAE and Andrew for 5% off. Now, to some degree, it's going to depend on what you want to shoot professionally, but usually when we're talking about entering the field of photography professionally, we're talking about wedding, portraiture, headshots, that sort of thing first, because it's the easiest way to get into professional photography. And when we started, that's where we started, and we only had 2 lenses, an 85mm lens and a 35mm lens. And even today, even though we have dozens of lenses, we usually just shoot with those 2 focal lengths when we do portrait shoots.
So for these kits, we tried to find 3 things: a reliable body and 2 good quality lenses, a wide angle lens, and a narrow telephoto portrait style lens. Between a portrait and wide angle, you basically are able to do anything you need in almost any portrait situation.
And because the times we're living in, we are very limited in what we could demonstrate to you with these bodies and lenses. We couldn't go out and hire models or take you to an actual paid family shoot like we would have wanted to do. But since we do have a lot of children, and since we never buy those silly photo prints that the schools do, we decided it would be a perfect time to do our own yearly school portrait shoot in our own home.
And just to add some other diversity, we also did a quick stylized fashion photo shoot and some pet photography.
So we'll describe each of these 3 kits, and while we do so, we'll also show you some photos from each of the 3 different shoots side by side, so you can compare what you could realistically get with each one of these and be your own judge.
So let's go. For our first kit, we decided to base it off of our very first Canon portrait kit. We started with the Canon 5D Mark II and 2 excellent lenses.
The Canon 5D Mark II was originally announced in September 2008 and discontinued in 2012. Petapixel called this camera quite possibly the most popular and influential DSLR in history, and with good reason. Even in 2020, the 21.1 megapixel images from this fantastic body can stand proudly side by side with any output from any modern professional camera body.
We shot portraits with this camera body for the first 2 years of having a portrait business, and only felt a need to change the systems when Andrew's wrist started to have some major issues because of the camera's weight.
As for lenses, we started with a really wonderful 85mm 1.8 portrait lens. If you're a portrait photographer specializing in outdoor work, you could probably pretty much just use this lens. It's only if you shoot indoor where you will probably need something wider as well.
For the wider angle lens, we actually found that KEH had a really great price on the really capable 24 to 104 millimeter f4 zoom lens. This lens isn't perfect, but it will help you have some excellent flexibility for those rare times when 85mm focal length is not the right focal length for your needs.
The total price for this capable kit came in at an extremely reasonable $985.64.
For our next kit, we will continue following the trajectory of our own photo career. After shooting with Canon for years, we moved to the Fuji system.
Where the Canon 5D Mark II is a beast of a camera, the X-T10 is the noisy cricket. It packs a punch in an extremely small size. Some of the advantages of a small mirrorless camera like this over the 5D Mark II is an articulating screen, and that makes it much easier to shoot with in awkward angles. And perhaps the greatest benefit, what you'll see in the LCD, is what you're going to get after you press the shutter, which is not the case with a DSLR where you're looking through a mirror and you have to rely on your exposure meter to show you if what you're going to shoot is properly exposed. The X-T10 does have a smaller sensor size though, and fewer megapixels than the full-frame 5D Mark II, and that means you'll have to sacrifice a bit when it comes to depth of field.
For lenses, we found this 60mm 2.4, which is a great lens for both portraits and for tiny details, as it focuses incredibly close. In fact, Andrew is able to focus much closer to my eyes in this stylized scene than with any other lens we tested. And for the wide end, we went with the 18mm f2 prime lens. The total price on this kit was $976.19, and here are the photos we got with this kit. For our final kit, we thought it would be a good idea to show what a professional kit would look like if you decided to adapt vintage lenses. It's possible to save a lot of money on your first professional kit if you don't mind losing the ability to shoot with autofocus.
For this kit, we started with a Sony body as the platform. The Sony A7 original was released in October 2013 with a 24 megapixel sensor, and for the time, that was the world's best autofocus system in a consumer mirrorless camera.
We picked up a cheap K&F Nikon G to Sony E-mount adapter so that we could adapt some awesome vintage Nikon lenses to the A7.
And the very first lens that we chose was the very cool Nikon 85mm 1.8H manual focus lens from the 70s. With a lot of vintage lenses, especially lenses like this where you tend to shoot pretty wide open as far as aperture, they tend to have a lot of imperfections like color fringing, lack of contrast, lack of sharpness, or ghosting. But this guy performed extremely well for such an affordable lens, and the quality was right there with the other portrait lenses we tested.
For the wide end, we went with the classic 24mm 2.8 AIS, which has stood the test of time as a solid wide-angle performer.
But that will round out the kits we shot with for this photo project. Let's see how the photos from this A7 with the vintage lenses compared to the others.
All right, now that you've seen some photos, let us know which ones you like the best, which ones are your favorite, and which kit you think you would purchase and like to use.
Yeah, but that's it for now, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us, as always. Good luck in your photo journeys, even if they are at home these days. And until next time, remember to do good with your cameras. We'll talk to you again real soon.